Welcome to the Wow Embossing channel. It is time for another episode of Card Maker's Delight with me, Sasha. So today we're going to be looking at another marbling technique. Okay, I think it's safe to say that I am obsessed with marbling, but did you know that you could use your alcohol inks with your embossing powder? Well, stay tuned to see how. Okay, so we'll start with the 3.5 by 5.5 inch panel of white cardstock. Now, I really recommend the Wow Superior Embossing cardstock because you're going to need a really heavyweight cardstock that can hold the weight of the layers of embossing powder. And the Wow cardstock is of course superior, but it is also 250 GSM, which is perfect for this. You're also going to need some alcohol inks. I've chosen some autumn inspired colors or fall, wherever you come from, whatever you name the season. And I'll also be using the gold statue alloy. I think that's what it's called. So we're going to go ahead and just start by adding ink to our panel of cardstock, and I'm just doing that by pressing it on. I find this way the easiest way. You need a really juicy ink pad for this because you're going to need a well inked up panel, and you know it's well inked up when you see glistening just like that. So we're going to go ahead and add our white embossing powder. Now you need the ultra high stuff, which is the chunky stuff. Now you can tell how much I use this because mine is like almost finished and I'll definitely be getting a refill, but I'm just so in love with this embossing powder. The ultra high gloss embossing powder, it's so amazing. So once you've added that to your panel, you can see that some of the ink has dried up, so none of the powder attached to that area, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how to fix any patches, but also this is why we do 2 layers of this embossing powder rather than 1. So once that's heat embossed, you're going to go ahead and do your second layer of embossing, and as you're inking up, make sure you're focusing on the area where you have your patches, because obviously you want to cover up those patches. So once I've heat embossed that, you can see that we still have a patch there, and I'm just going to quickly show you how to fix that. So you just heat up your patch area, and once it's nice and hot, you're just going to add your embossing powder, because your embossing powder, well, most of it will stick to the heat or the heated area because of the other embossing powder that's already there, so it will just melt into that embossing powder. Another way that you can do it is to just lift up your panel a bit and then heat up the area, and you'll see that molten embossing powder starting to move on its own. So just use your tool, your heat tool, to direct it, and then make sure that you're covering up your patches. It doesn't matter if it goes over the edge because your edges are going to be smooth no matter what. So once you have a nicely covered up background, just make sure that it's all nice and smooth and all the areas are even, and you just do that by adding heat to the whole thing, and it just evens itself out. So this is what it looks like once we're done with our layers of white. So now let the fun begin. So depending on how you apply your alcohol inks, you do get a variation in like the patterning and how it spreads out and all of that. So with this one, I'm just going to be doing stripes, and what I do is I do one dark color, then I add a light color. So I did the green, now I'm doing the yellow, and then now I'm doing a dark color again, which is like the cranberry red. It's sort of like adult juice, also known as wine. So once I've done the wine red, I'm going to go in with the orange. So this prevents you from having a pooey brown. So you do one dark color, then you do a light color, then you do a dark, then you do a light color. And of course, we're going to finish off with the gold because gold makes everything sing. And we definitely want our panel to sing. I don't know what that note was, but anyway, go ahead and heat emboss. So as you're adding heat to it, it's definitely going to bubble up because you've got 2 layers of extra thick embossing powder. But don't let that scare you at all. Just continue mixing up your embossing powders, because the bubbling there means that you're really reaching the underneath of the two layers of the embossing powder, and they're mixing up nicely with the alcohol ink. So I hope you can see there that I'm using my heat tool to sort of direct the direction. It's kind of like directing traffic. You're like just directing those colors to create like these shapes or ripples, if you'd like to call them. I'm not quite sure what to call them, but I swear this looks exactly like acrylic pouring. Like, you know, when they do a nice acrylic pour, this is exactly what this reminds me of, and it feels so good, because then there's no acrylic mess to clean up. So if you like that kind of thing, then this is a good way to like cheat your way into, maybe you can even make like do this on wood and then turn it into like an acrylic pour picture, sort of like frame it and everything. I think that would really work. So this is what the panel looks like after one layer of the alcohol inks. You can leave it like this, but I wanted to show you that you can also add more color back into the panel if you're not satisfied with the coloring and you just want more color. Maybe you just want to try something different, and that is so good, because over here we definitely encourage experimenting and exploring, because you never know what you might come up with. So don't worry about which alcohol inks I'm using, because I haven't mentioned it in the video, but I will link everything in the description below, so you don't have to worry trying to remember which colors I used. It will be linked in the description below. Okay, so this is what the finished panel looks like, and I just really love the glow of that gold. So obviously I used the alloy to add some gold because it needed it. You always need gold. With gold, more is more. But if you wanted this effect, you could also use gold embossing powder. And what you do is you heat up or reheat an area where you want to add your gold, and then just sprinkle on your embossing powder. You can use a spoon for this if you don't want to like touch the embossing powder, but sprinkling gives a nice effect, and it also gives texture. So another way to add texture or interest to this panel is to heat up a small area and then sprinkle once again, but this time we're sprinkling on our bright white embossing powder, the chunky stuff. And because this stuff is like literal little balls of white gorgeous embossing powder, it gives this sort of dotted effect. And when I look at this, I feel like it gives like that look of a cell. If you're into acrylic pour, you know what a cell is. If you're not, then you know, YouTube it, since you're already on YouTube. Just type in what is an acrylic pour cell. So this is what the complete panel looks like, and just look at that gorgeous gold and all these beautiful colors. They have lightened up, but they're still just so beautiful. I'm just going to zoom in so that I can show you what it looks like close up, and you can just see the gloss and beautiful color. I'm just going to quickly show you how to fix warping, because you do get warping with this panel. So you just turn your panel over on its back, and then you just heat from the back until you get it flat again. That's the quickest way to get rid of the warping. So I made that background there earlier, and just look at the difference in the final product that you get. But anyway, to turn this one that we made into a background, you're going to go ahead and take a 5x7 card base, and then I've cut out a frame for some copper cardstock, and I'm going to stick that over my 5x7 card base, and then put my panel right in the middle of that. I'm using very strong liquid adhesive, and I've got these dies from Erin Lee Creative, which I'm going to die cut out of vellum and gold cardstock. So this is our final card, and you can see that it looks really lovely. I've kept the rest of it so simple so as not to take away the focus from that gorgeous cocktail of colors there. You can see, I think it looks autumny. So I'm quite happy with this, and I just love that just breathe sentiment, because it reminds us to just breathe and take it easy. So thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to like this video and share it with other marbling lovers, other heat embossing lovers, and definitely comment below and let us know what you think of this marbling technique, or just say hello.